Reddit, what is the best thing that has ever happened to you because of curiosity? 3 years ago, Lollapalooza. I was too poor to buy tickets, so I figure I'll go to Chicago that day and just wander around the fence and hear music. I was too much of a bee back then to try sneaking in on purpose. At one point I saw a break in the fence and was curious where it would take me. I walk for about 5 minutes and I start seeing people running back and forth. I was so confused. A security guard grabs me by the arm and says, "Hey, you're not allowed to be back here," and he walked me out into Lollapalooza. It's like the art of haggling. Overshoot so you end up where you want to be. My first plane ride. My sister and I were walking by the little municipal airport near my grandma's house, and a hippie looking guy saw us looking at the planes and offered to take us up for a ride in his plane. Of course, this all could have gone horribly wrong, but it didn't. He had a little crop dusterish plane, and we went up for about 20 minutes, flying over our little town, the river, etc. It was awesome. Then we landed, and my sister and I went back to grandma's house, and not one person believed us. Probably a good thing. Nowadays, a full-on investigation would be started against this guy. He would lose his pilot license on allegations of kidnapping, and Chris Hansen would be knocking at his door. On a side note, though, I do love crop dusting at the grocery store. When I was 15, back in the good old days when you still could tour the cockpit in an aircraft, I was flying back to Ottawa from Calgary with a stop in Toronto. I decided to ask for a tour of the cockpit, and as I was always interested in planes and flying, got talking to the pilot and co-pilot for a long time. As we approached Toronto, I said I should head back to my seat as we would be landing soon. The pilot then suggested that I use the jump seat behind them in the cockpit and stay for the landing. He hooked me up with a headset so I could hear the air traffic control chatter and gave me a short rundown of how to land an aircraft along with a full rundown of what color of each light on the tarmac means. Needless to say, it was the best flight ever. I was on a motorcycle ride back from my parents' house, Pennsylvania, to my house, Texas. I was passing through Kentucky and I saw this neat little road off the highway, so I took it. About 5 minutes of riding when it turns into some dense woods. I think that it might be wise to turn around, but decide to explore a few more miles. I turned down another road and next thing I know, the entire road opened up to this beautiful grassland as far as I could see. I parked my bike and just stood there staring at it all. I was going through some hard times back then, and seeing this beautiful piece of land, just sitting there with grass swaying in the wind, completely quiet but for the sound of nature, really made me realize that what I was going through just didn't matter. Here was the earth. Here was this rock that we sit on that floats through space. Here it is not giving a frick what I was going through. That little patch of earth that I discovered changed me that day. It happened to my friend's brother. He was camping or hiking with a bunch of Boy Scouts. They came across a fence while exploring and hopped it and started to continue their adventure. A few minutes later they were ambushed by serious dudes with loaded guns. The scouts had unknowingly broke into Camp David. After a long time of questioning and verifying that they were just lost scouts, their troop was given a tour of the site. Good thing he joined Boy Scouts instead of Muslim youth hikers. I was on a first date with a woman who volunteered at a large zoo. We met through friends and at the time I lived 2 hours away from her, so I agreed to travel to her if she had a good idea for a first date. She decided a day at the zoo would be great, and was able to take me behind the scenes of everything. I asked, "So how much do you feed the polar bears?" out of random curiosity. She told me the answer and then threw in they also get marshmallows if they are good. I was surprised about this fact, because I've never heard of it. So she took me behind the polar bear habitat with one of the zookeepers. It had just happened to be near feeding time. The zookeeper got a big bucket of fish and fed it to the bears. The only thing separating my date and I from the polar bears were 5 heavy vertical bars. After the fish were gone, the zookeeper took a bag of marshmallows from his pockets and tapped the bars with a large metal pole. I assume this meant marshmallow time because a polar bear looked up like "Holy crap, it's marshmallow time," and ran over to the bars. He stuck a marshmallow on the pole, about 4-5 feet long, got it soaked in some delicious fish juices from the bucket, and fed it to him. Then he let me do it. This was the closest I've ever been to any kind of bear, and let me tell you, polar bears are freaking huge. I got him to stand up for the marshmallow. Seeing him so close was just amazing. Best first date I've ever been on. I promptly married that girl. I live right beside the railroad tracks. One hot summer day I got bored and wondered where they went. So I climbed up this steep grade and started walking along the tracks, just relaxing and letting my mind wander. Of course I was watching for trains. About 20 minutes later I hear something. I walk over to the edge of the tracks and see about a 50-foot nearly vertical drop off. At the bottom is the most beautiful creek. It was like something out of a movie, it was so picture perfect. So I slid down the hill, took off my shoes and started walking in the water. Well, the creek ran under the tracks, so when they built the railroad they put in a tunnel. I look through the long tunnel and on the other side is a pond. So I swim through the tunnel and on the other side I find myself swimming in this deep pond. But I noticed something. This pond wasn't natural. Someone had built a dam in the creek to slow the flow of water and make this paradise. The shovel was still there from where they made it. They had even built a bench and a rope swing over the pond. It was the most amazing experience. I couldn't help but wonder about what had brought these people to build this place. I kept going back to this place throughout the summer and eventually followed the creek to a housing development where I stopped and turned back. I only shared this pond with a few people over the years. I consider it my little paradise and I go there whenever I feel the world getting to me. It reminds me there is a simpler part to life and quite a bit of mystery in it too. Stories like this on Reddit have engendered a Pavlovian response in me. I kept waiting for the horrific turn of the story or evil-natured troll that would send my day into a tailspin. By the penultimate sentence I was wincing, clenching my abs and squeezing the mouse in anticipation of traumatic reading. Everything turned out great. Thanks for keeping it real. I was on duty in the military, and I heard a noise behind a tent at about 3 o'clock in the morning. I was curious, so I went to go see what it was. There was a guy on top of a big tent, with a noose around his neck, trying to hang himself. I managed to get him down before jumped. No one was injured. Good save, man. I sold memberships at a really fancy gym in LA. Our clients were either super rich or celebrities. I didn't care though. It was Sunday night and there were 5 minutes left in my shift, and I just wanted to get the heck out of there that night. Of course, one guy walks in for a tour. I walk him around, go through my spiel. He mentioned he had a recording studio down the street. These people are a dime a dozen and I just want to go home, so I don't really give a crap. And we get back to my office where I'm hoping he'll say he wants to think about it and I won't have to enter all his crap in the computer and walk him through all the paperwork. Anyways, that doesn't happen, and he wants to join. There is no avoiding staying another half hour now, so I lighten up. As we're working through the paperwork I start to make small talk. I asked him what kind of music he produced. He starts off with, Liz Phair, Dave Matthews Band, and I interrupt with, oh, Liz Phair. I saw her on tour with Jason Mraz. Yeah, make fun of me. I do like some Dave Matthews, but I've been a Jason fan forever, so that's what I focused on. And he says matter-of-factly, oh, well, I did his last record too. What? But to top it all off, I had been bummed because Jason was playing a couple shows in LA that sold out before I could buy tickets. The first one was that night. Literally about 2 hours later, I somehow remained calm and said, oh, isn't he playing a show at the Wilton tonight? He says, yeah, do you want to go? I actually haven't seen him live in a long time. It'd be good to see him, and calls up Jason's cell from my office, right there at my desk. He tells Jason to give our names to security. We finish up at the office and the producer says he'll meet me at the show. When I get to the Wilton, I'm taken to a side door, where I'm given a VIP lanyard pass. I meet the producer there too, and he freaking takes me up to Jason's dressing room, where we hang out with Jason and the rest of the band till they go on stage. At that point, we all walked down together, and the producer was just gonna go chill somewhere backstage but knew I wanted to see the show, so he told me I could just stand on the side of the stage to watch. So when the band would come off while Jason did his acoustic stuff, they would just stand with me and chit chat. It was bizarre. When the show was over, Jason played a couple encores, then security came to escort him through the backstage. They walked right by me on the side of the stage, and in the mad rush I didn't have a chance to say goodbye. But when they got to the exit, Jason stopped, left his security there, and walked back only to tell me goodbye, give me a hug, and tell me to come back anytime. Definitely one of the coolest, most random nights of my life, and taught me a valuable lesson about staying positive and maintaining an interest in people even when I'd rather be doing something else. I figured you were a guy until he came back and gave you a hug. Now it all makes much more sense. I wondered what would happen if I set the jumpers on my motherboard for a Pentium 120MHz when I only had Pentium 90MHz in the socket. I independently discovered overclocking, and my Quake 2 frame rates went up almost linearly. My friend and I wondered what would happen if we set his Pentium 3 450MHz to about 600MHz. It was then I discovered you could cool a computer with water, like a car engine. That setup was sick, and all homebrewed. He even drilled the water block himself. I pressed a button on a soda machine without putting any money in and I got a free Minute Maid grape soda. Best grape soda I ever had. I was probably around 7 at the time. This has not happened again. I was studying at school at a table right near a soda machine. Nobody else was near the machine and I had been there for a while. Suddenly, the machine makes a clanking noise and it dispensed a ghostly root beer. Best haunted soda I have ever drank. My brother's story. We were at Dragoncan and he was wandering around the convention area at 2 in the morning. He and a few of our friends noticed a guy carrying a pizza. Turns out, the guy was John DiMaggio, voice of Bender and Jake, Adventure Time. They ended up talking to him for a while and he did double rainbow as Jake for them. He also gave them the pizza. I read that as Joe DiMaggio at first, and was subsequently very confused. I once bumped into a colleague who was retiring from a job I would have killed for. I casually asked who was replacing him. He asked me if I wanted the job. 3 weeks later his boss phoned me and set up an interview. That was almost 3 years ago. I love my job. I was at a Pearl Jam concert at Madison Square Garden, and after the show, my boyfriend and I were walking around the stadium. We saw this open door on the ground level, and because we took so long to walk around, the place was practically devoid of guards. We walked into the door, went down some stairs, through another open door and we realized we were backstage. We thought this place was empty, but then we saw huge speaker boxes labeled with Pearl Jam stickers and stuff. We walked around the boxes some more and thought there was nothing else interesting to see, so as we made our way toward the same door, I hear a hey. I turn around and we come face to face with Eddie freaking Vedder. We all talked for about 20 minutes, and he is a really good guy. He gave us a free subscription for the Pearl Jam 10 Club for 2 years before we left. I occasionally played Tribes with a guy who was new into being an editor at a smallish tech blog back in 2005. I was in college looking for something to do and asked if he needed an intern. Spent a few years as a staff writer at the blog, Gizmodo, which led me into my career as a journalist. Currently work as an editor and reporter at a major metro newspaper. So, curiosity made my career. You have been visited by the ingenious Joe. Comment brain so you always see the glass half full. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.